Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today on this episode, I wanted to go ahead and do a video that really is catering to those of you out there that are learning the sport, that are new to the sport of bass fishing, and that are really trying to learn techniques and baits that can make you a better angler and catch more fish. I mean, that's the whole point, right? And so today we're going to be talking about one of the most basic techniques in bass fishing, one that you have to learn. It's one of those foundational techniques that allows you to do a lot of different things. In fact, this rigging style that we're going to be talking about is the most broad rigging style. It allows you to fish any type of soft plastic bait or Elastec bait using this rigging style and make your presentation pretty much as weedless as it can possibly be. And of course, we're talking about the Texas rig today. All right, the Texas rig is one of the most standard things that we're going to be learning as bass fishermen right off the bat, is learning how to present a soft plastic bait in a weedless fashion, because most of the time in bass fishing, we're fishing in and around some type of cover. Bass love cover. They love to use it to rest, to ambush prey, to feel safe. And so using a presentation that can get in after those fish that are using that cover is really key. And so a Texas rig is the ultimate when it comes to that. All right, so that is, I mean, the Texas rig is just the absolute gold standard in bass fishing with soft plastics. And so we're going to talk about how to Texas rig and the tackle that you're generally looking at. And for the purposes of this video, we're going to really keep it basic. We're going to be talking about this setup right here. This is just a simple Texas rig worm. All right, we're going to be focusing on this. And the reason why I want to just kind of narrow the focus a little bit is because we can get bogged down talking about, Texas rigging creature baits, flipping and pitching, and the different setup you want for that, or, throwing swim baits, or whatever it could be. We can get down in the weeds, focusing on all these different things that you can do with the Texas rig. But really the basic setup that you really want to start with, if you're just learning a Texas rig, is just a Texas rig worm like this. Most of the time, especially in this demonstration, we're going to be using a sliding bullet sinker on there. And really, for just a traditional Texas rig worm, you're looking at 1/8 ounce to 1/2 ounce. Now, other techniques, you can go lighter, and some others you can go way heavier, all the way up to 2 ounces. But a sliding bullet sinker like this, tungsten is my favorite. It's more compact, it makes a better sound, and it's more durable. Tungsten is kind of the gold standard nowadays in bass fishing, but you can use lead, you can use steel, you can use a lot of different types of bullet weight materials, but this one's the best. And usually you have the bullet sinker just sliding freely. Okay, and today we also have added a little bead, a little tungsten proof bead, chip proof bead there in between the weight and the bait, just to add a little bit more clacking sound. Okay, you can hear that. And that is something that I like to do. I like to customize my bait a little bit. But essentially that's the basic one. Just a sliding bullet sinker, 1/8 ounce to 1/2 ounce. And then you've got, sometimes if you're trying to keep your bait or your weight attached to the bait, you're going to be using a bobber stop or some type of peg. So if you're fishing real dense cover where you want the whole package to slide through that cover at the same time, having a peg or a bobber stop is pretty important. But that is the general setup. So let's talk about how to rig your bait Texas rig style. Essentially, you're going to take your worm like this, okay, and then you take a hook like this. This is an offset shank hook. This is the WRM 114 from Hayabusa. Very standard offset shank hook. For wider baits, you're going to use an EWG style hook, a extra wide gap style hook. You can also use straight shank hook as well, but I prefer offset shank. So this is, you're going to essentially just take the hook point, dig it into the plastic about 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch at most, into the nose of the bait, and then you're going to bring it out through the chin of the bait. Okay, just like that. And then from there, we're going to bring it all the way down and turn around that hook so the kink in the hook is pointing down. And then we're going to take the hook point. We're going to line it up with what looks like the where the hook needs to enter to make it perfectly straight. All right, so we're going to do this, and with a traditional soft plastic bait, soft plastic worm, we're going to bring the hook point all the way through, and then we're going to do something called Texpose, where we take just the point and we dig it into that plastic, just like that. So that makes it very streamlined, very weedless. The hook point is protected, and the traditional soft plastic material isn't going to ball up and foul up your hook set, because that point is ready to pop out. With a Lastech though, like the mag fatties that we're fishing today, we're just going to dig that hook point right into the dead center of the bait. Okay, because this material is very soft, it's very compressible, and I find that I just dig it into the center of the bait, and it has a great hooking percentage. So that's what we're going to do with the Lastech. But the biggest key with both of those rigging styles is having it perfectly straight. All right, so just as far as like real quick tackle breakdown, I'm trying not to drag this out too long. As far as the line for just a traditional Texas rig like this, we're going to be using fluorocarbon line the majority of the time. That's going to be the best type of line for fishing just a Texas rig worm, and we're going to be using anywhere from 12 to 15 pound test. I think that is a good gold standard for fishing a traditional Texas rig worm. 12-pound test for clear water and around very isolated or sparse cover, and 15-pound test for thicker cover and dirtier water scenarios. That's kind of the what you're looking to look for if you're deciding between those two. Good lines would include, you know, to begin with, like Seaguar Basics or Red Label, and then start graduating into a Braised X or even Tatsu, which is top of the line. The rod that I like to use is going to be a 7.3 medium heavy fast action rod. You know, whatever brand you're looking at. I use Fitzgerald rods. The 7.3 medium heavy all-purpose rod is probably the best Texas rig worm rod, and I mean, I'll stand by that because I love this rod for fishing just a Texas rig worm like this. So, but any 7.3 or 7 foot to 7.3 medium heavy fast action rod is going to work really well. And then I use a high speed gear ratio bait casting reel. Other than that, let's go ahead, put the trolling motor down and get to fishing. I'm going to show you some of the ways that I retrieve a Texas rig like this. Let's get to it. Oh yeah, we got a brush pile out there. Make a cast. All right, so the first retrieve that we've got to talk about with a Texas rig is really the most standard retrieve for Texas rigging, and it works for a lot of different types of presentations that you're going to be throwing. But with a Texas rig worm like this, essentially the standby standard retrieve is just a rod tip up in the air like this, keeping your rod tip up kind of in the, you know, 10 or 11 o'clock position, and raising the rod tip up and letting the bait fall back down. Okay, so this rod tip up orientation, where you're just kind of hopping the bait up off the bottom, or you know, swimming it through cover a little bit, is going to be pretty standard. Now, I'm usually fishing it like this, you know, where I'll hop it and I'll let it hit the bottom and kind of sit for a second. And sometimes I might add a little bit of shake to the bait, okay, just to get it to you know, kind of wave that tail in place a little bit. So you can kind of modify this, but this is the standard Texas retrieve, where you're just raising the rod tip and letting the bait fall down. Now, the biggest key to having success day in and day out with this retrieve in particular is the fact that sometimes the fish are a little less aggressive, so they want less of a hop, and sometimes they want a big tall hop, you know, something that goes up 2 or 3 feet in the water column. And sometimes you're fishing something like brush pile where you have to bring it over that brush pile, you know, over a limb. And so you're gonna have a taller, lift and then drop. But if I'm fishing really a bottom that doesn't have a lot of real tall cover on it, like a lay down or a brush pile or something like that, I'm probably going to be using shorter hops. So just hopping it, you know, lifting it 6 inches, letting it fall back down type of thing. But a lift and drop technique is going to be the standby for fishing a Texas rig. Now, I'm a big believer in keeping your rod tip up with a Texas rig, okay? There's certain techniques like a Carolina rig where you want to drag with your rod tip to the side. I don't like doing that as much with the Texas rig. You can do that, but I think that the line makes contact with the abrasive bottom very easily with the Texas rig, so I like to keep it up. And the second retrieve that I wanted to show you, it kind of looks like I'm lifting and dropping it, but I'm essentially just pulling my rod tip straight up and dragging that bait. The worm is not actually lifting up. I'm doing it so softly and gently that I'm just keeping the bait on the bottom and just dragging it, okay? And this dragging technique is really, really important. I just got a bite. Oh, he let go. This dragging technique is super important when the bite is very slow and also when you're fishing pretty clean bottoms. You know, when you're fishing maybe a ledge or something like that where the fish aren't super active and they just want a retrieve that is that bait just grinding on the bottom, okay? So you're still keeping your rod tip up, but you're pulling it so slow that the bait never actually hops off the bottom. It just stays on the bottom. Okay, so that's another big key. Let's see if we can actually get a fish to bite here. All right, there we go. So another thing that you can do to all of these retrieves is, of course, shaking the rod tip a little bit. And that's one thing I really like to do if, like, say I'm working the bait, either dragging or hopping it, and then all of a sudden I make contact with a piece of cover like the brush pile that I just made contact with. I'll just slightly shake my rod tip. The whole idea is not to bring it forward, but to just kind of shake it in place so that tail is just, waving straight up off the bottom. This is a really good technique for, for less active fish like today. It's real calm, sunny. There we go. That one wanted it shaked. I mean, I had worked that worm through that brush pile multiple times already, and he didn't want a hopped retrieve where it's just kind of hopping constantly. He didn't really want a drag retrieve. He wanted kind of a drag retrieve with a little bit of shake. Okay, so you really have to read the fish's mood on any given day. Let's make another cast back to the brush. There we go. But anyways, those are really the basic retrieves for fishing a Texas rig, and I urge you, don't just use one or the other retrieve. Use both of them and manipulate the retrieve just slightly based on the conditions. If you think that the fish have a moderate activity level, if it's not terrible fishing, but it's also not great fishing, do shorter hops. And add some shakes in there and more pauses. There's all kinds of things that you can do with those two general ways of fishing a Texas rig. So just on any given day, just adjust the height of the hops, the pauses in between the hops, and also with dragging, how long you pause that bait. If you come up to a piece of cover, how long do you just let it sit there on the bottom without moving it? And do you add a little bit of shakes, shaking to that worm? Do you impart that action to it? It's really up to the situation. But the general rule is the more active the fish and the heavier the cover that you're fishing, the more you're going to hop it, and the cleaner the bottom and the less active the fish are, the more you're just going to drag it. All right, guys, so the next really important thing to fishing a Texas rig is once you get the bite, how do you set the hook? What is the proper way to set the hook with a Texas rig? So this brush pile is kind of dead at this point, but I'll just demonstrate my process for setting the hook. Essentially, the bite is going to feel a lot of times like a tap. Like it's just going to, all of a sudden you're going to feel this little sharp tap on the line, all right? And then it might go slack because sometimes the fish will start swimming towards you. The biggest thing that you want to do is you don't want to set the hook right away with your rod tip up in the air, because you don't have a lot of range of motion at that point to get the slack out of the line and drive that hook point home. So what you want to do is you want to reel down until you feel the fish, you feel the pressure of the fish, but you don't put too much pressure on the fish and make him drop the bait. You just slightly feel the pressure of the fish, and then you lower the rod tip at the same time, and then you set the hook straight up like that, and you get all that slack out. But the biggest key is when you feel that bite and the rod tip is up here, don't just all of a sudden set the hook, because then you're back here before you get all the slack of the line out. So it's really super critical to drop the rod tip, reel until you feel the pressure of the fish, and then set the hook in an upward or kind of upward to the side fashion. That is kind of the big key. But getting the slack out of your line is 100% going to help you get more of those bites in the boat. So anyways, guys, the one thing I do want to drive home for you guys is that, especially the retrieves that I showed you, very customizable. You can do a lot of different things with a Texas rig. And once you get used to fishing the traditional Texas rig worm, you can start branching off into a wide variety of different types of soft plastic and Elastec baits, and the Texas rig is going to be a rigging style that you'll use for the rest of your fishing career. So anyways, guys, just wanted to do a video on the basics of fishing a Texas rig. If you guys have any questions at all, please drop a comment below. And if you have a topic that you want me to cover in a future video, I also want to hear that topic. And also, one of the things that I definitely want to start talking about is, I get some of the best feedback from you guys, from my viewers, and if I help you catch a fish, if I've helped you with something and you are more successful as a result of that information, feel free to either comment in the comment section or send me an email at sonar@sonarfishing.com. I would love to hear your experiences and how some of my content might have helped you catch fish. That's a huge rewarding thing for me to hear of people having success with the things that I teach on this channel. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. I'm going to see you out on the water, and always trust the process.